Hello, dear visitors. Our today's discussion will shift towards the hot sands of Dune. We'll start exploring the deserts of planet Arrakis and beyond with a highly important scene that wasn't present in the movie, at least in its first part. Because when I'm recording this episode, the second part of the new movie is not yet out. So let's begin the part 1 of our video, and in this scene that I'm going to narrate to you today, Baron V. Harkonnen, the arch-enemy of the Atreides household, reveals the plan of what he explains as the biggest mantrap in all history. But let's dive in and see for ourselves. The chapter from the first book from the Dune cycle where this scene is depicted starts with an interesting passage. Let's read it first and then we'll continue with the scene itself. To attempt an understanding of Muad'Dib without understanding his mortal enemies, the Harkonnens, is to attempt seeing truth without knowing falsehood. It is the attempt to see the light without knowing darkness. It cannot be. From Manual of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. And now let's read the scene itself. It was a relief globe of a world, partly in shadows, spinning under the impetus of a fat hand that glittered with rings. The globe sat on a freeform stand at one wall of a windowless room, whose other walls presented a patchwork of multicolored scrolls, film books, tapes and reels. Light glowed in the room from golden balls hanging in mobile suspensor fields. An ellipsoid desk with a top of jade-pink petrified lacquer wood stood at the center of the room. Variform suspensor chairs ringed it, 2 of them occupied. In one sat a dark-haired youth of about 16 years, round of face and with sullen eyes. The other held a slender, short man with a feminine face. Let's do a small break here and I'll make a short remark on the suspensor tech in Dune. Well, basically the suspensor tech in Dune is the anti-gravity tech. So when you hear something like suspensor fields or suspensor chair, that means that this is something that is levitating, a levitating chair, an anti-gravity light, or maybe some other kind of gadget or piece of furniture that has this kind of anti-gravity field built into it. But let's not stray too far away from the scene and continue reading it. Both youth and man stared at the globe and the man, half hidden in shadows, spinning it. A chuckle sounded beside the globe. A bass of voice rumbled out of the chuckle. There it is, Spider, the biggest mantrap in all history. And the Duke has had it into its jaws. Is it not a magnificent thing that I, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, do? Assuredly, Baron, said the man. His voice came out tenor with a sweet musical quality. The fat hand descended onto the globe, stopped the spinning. Now all eyes in the room could focus on the motionless surface and see that it was the kind of globe made for wealthy collectors or planetary governors of the empire. It had the stamp of imperial handicraft about it. Latitude and longitude lines were laid in with hair-fine platinum wire. The polar caps were in sets of finest cloud milk diamonds. The fat hand moved, tracing details on the surface. I invite you to observe, the bass voice rumbled. Observe closely, Piter, and you too, Phaedrotha, my darling. From 60 degrees north to 70 degrees south, these exquisite ripples. Their coloring, does it not remind you of sweet caramels? And nowhere do you see blue of lakes or rivers or seas, and these lovely polar caps, so small. Could anyone mistake this place, Arrakis, truly unique, a superb setting for a unique victory? A smile touched Piter's lips. And to think, Baron, the petty Shah Emperor believes he's given the Duke your spy's planet. How poignant. That's a nonsensical statement, the Baron rumbled. You say this to confuse Jan Faedrotha, but it is not necessary to confuse my nephew. The sullen-faced youth stirred in his chair, smoothed the wrinkle in the black leotards he wore. He sat upright as a discreet tapping sounded at the door in the wall behind him. Peter unfolded from his chair, crossed to the door, cracked it wide enough to accept a message cylinder. He closed the door, unrolled the cylinder and scanned it. A chuckle sounded from him. Another. Well, the Baron demanded. The full answer does, Baron. Whenever did an Atreides refuse the opportunity for a gesture? The Baron asked. Well, what does he say? He is most uncouth, Baron. Addresses you as Harkonnen, no sire, Shah Kazan, no title, nothing. It's a good name, the Baron growled, and his voice betrayed his impatience. What does dear Leto say? He says your offer of a meeting is refused. I have oft times met your treachery, and this all men know. And? The Baron asked. He says the art of Conley still has admirers in the Empire. He signs it Duke Leto of Arrakis. Peter began to laugh. Of Arrakis, oh my, this is almost too rich. Be silent, Peter, the Baron said, and the laughter stopped as though shut off with a switch. Conley, is it? The Baron asked. Vendetta. And he uses the nice old word so rich in tradition to be sure I know he means it. You made the peace gesture, Peter said. The forms have been obeyed. For a mentat, you talk too much, Peter, the Baron said, and he thought, I must do away with that one soon. He has almost outlived his usefulness. The Baron stared across the room at his mentat assassin, seeing the feature about him that most people noticed first. The eyes. The shaded slits of blue within blue. The eyes without any white in them at all. A grin flashed across Peter's face. It was like a masked grimace beneath those eyes like holes. But Baron, never has revenge been more beautiful. It is to see a plan of the most exquisite treachery, to make Leto exchange Caladan for Dune, and without alternative because the Emperor orders it. How waggish of you! In a cold voice the Baron said, You have a flux of the mouse, Peter. But I am happy, my Baron, whereas you are touched by jealousy. Peter! Ah, Baron, is it not regrettable you were unable to devise this delicious scheme by yourself? Some day I will have you strangled, Peter. Of a certainty, Baron. Enfant, but a kind act is never lost, huh? Have you been chewing Verite or Semuta, Peter? Truth without fear surprises the Baron, Peter said. His face drew down into a caricature of a frowning mask. Aha! But you see, Baron, I know as a mentat when you will send the executioner. You will hold back just so long as I am useful. To move sooner would be wasteful, and I am yet of much use. I know what it is you learned from the lovely Dune planet. Waste not. True, Baron? The Baron continued to stare at Peter. Faedrotha squirmed in his chair. These wrangling fools, he thought. My uncle cannot talk to his mentat without arguing. Do they think I have nothing to do except listen to their arguments? Faid, the Baron said. I told you to listen and learn when I invited you in here. Are you learning? Yes, uncle. The voice was carefully subservient. Sometimes I wonder about Peter, the Baron said. I cause pain out of necessity, but I swear he takes a positive delight in it. For myself, I can feel pity toward the poor Duke Leto. Dr. Yue will move against him soon, and that'll be the end of all the Atreides. But surely Leto will know whose hand directed the pliant doctor, and knowing that will be a terrible thing. Then why haven't you directed the doctor to slip a kinjal between his ribs quietly and efficiently? Piter asked. You talk of pity, but... The Duke must know when I encompass his doom, the Baron said. And the other great houses must learn of it. The knowledge will give them pause. I'll gain a bit more room to maneuver. The necessity is obvious, but I don't have to like it. Room to maneuver, Piter sneered. Already you have the Emperor's eyes on you, Baron. You move too boldly. One day the Emperor will send a legion or two of his Sardaukar down here onto Gaidi Prime, and that'll be an end to the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. You'd love to see that, wouldn't you, Piter? The Baron asked. You'd enjoy seeing the corpse of Sardaukar pillage through my cities and sack this castle. You'd truly enjoy that. Does the Baron need to ask? Piter whispered. You should have been a Bashar of the corpse, the Baron said. You're too interested in blood and pain. Perhaps I was too quick with my promise of the spoils of Arrakis. Piter took 5 curiously mincing steps into the room, stopped directly behind Thade Roltha. There was a tight air of tension in the room, and the youth looked up at Piter with a worried frown. Do not toy with Piter, Baron, Piter said. You promised me the Lady Jessica. You promised her to me. For what, Piter? The Baron asked. For pain? Piter stared at him, dragging out the silence. Thade Roltha moved his suspensor chair to one side, said, Uncle, do I have to stay? You said you'd... My darling Thade Roltha grows impatient, the Baron said. He moved within the shadows beside the globe. Patience, Thade. And he turned his attention back to the mentat. What of the dukeling, the child Paul, my dear Piter? The trap will bring him to you, Baron, Piter muttered. That's not my question, the Baron said. You recall that you predicted the Bene Gesserit witch would bear a daughter to the Duke. You were wrong, mentat? I'm not often wrong, Baron, Piter said, and for the first time there was fear in his voice. Give me that. I'm not often wrong. And you know yourself these Bene Gesserit bear mostly daughters. Even the Emperor's consort had produced only females. Uncle, said Thade Roltha, you said there'd be something important here for me to... Listen to my nephew, the Baron said. He aspires to rule my barony, yet he cannot rule himself. The Baron stirred beside the globe, a shadow among shadows. Well then, Thade Roltha Harkonnen, I summoned you here, hoping to teach you a bit of wisdom. Have you observed our good mentat? You should have learned something from this exchange. But uncle... A most efficient mentat, Piter. Wouldn't you say, Thade? Yes, but... Ah, indeed, but he consumes too much spice, eats it like candy. Look at his eyes. He might have come directly from the Arrakin labor pool. Efficient Piter, but he is still emotional and prone to passionate outbursts. Efficient Piter, but he still can err. Okay, I'll stop right here. Such a gorgeous piece of writing this scene is. It almost embraces us and gives a lot of information to think about. It draws a very, very subtle picture of who the Baron is. And of course, it explains the character of Piter the Mentat. This scene alone gives us almost everything that we need to understand where Piter is coming from and what he really wants to achieve, even though he is a Mentat and must be very, very logical, but he seems so emotional, so untrained in a way, even though he is one of the best. Stay tuned for the second part of this video, where I'll read the scene to the end and the whole plan in full detail of the biggest mantrap in all history will be unveiled. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.